So I should probably preface this entire video by saying that I don't really know anything about Amber Heard, the professional, the actress. I don't know what she does. I don't know how she feels as an activist. I don't know anything about her. But I'm also going to add that it doesn't really matter in the context of this video. I'm talking about Amber Heard, the person, Amber Heard, the queer member of the queer community. I'm not really talking about Amber Heard, the activist. So all Amber Heard fans out there should probably realize that in the grand scheme of things, who Amber Heard is as an actress, as a professional, doesn't really matter to me, and that I don't really care. So probably some background on that. So I came across this interview on Tumblr from Amber Heard talking about queer children, queer teens, and coming out. And it made me realize that when you're queer and privileged, you kind of have a hard time separating yourself from what you know as a person who is in somewhat power and what you think and what you know about people, queer people who are not in the same position as you. And this interview was really interesting to me because it was a good example of how Amber Heard, the professional, Amber Heard, the actress, has a really hard time differentiating herself from Amber Heard, the person who would probably have different ideas about coming out and about being queer has she not been in this place as an actress that allows her a lot more freedom and kind of like security in her environment and where she is. This interview overall was really kind of pathetic, and I found it offensive for so many reasons, but I'm going to let you guys look at a clip so you can kind of figure out the intricacies of what she really said and how it is problematic to queer teens and young adults all over the world who are watching her. So here's the clip.
I mean, right? I had to make a decision, you know, like we all had to do. I mean, it's not easy for anyone, and that's part of the problem, you know? Yeah. And I had to ask myself, am I a part of the problem? You know, I see all of these actors, people I work with, people I know that are living two lives, and one of which is secret, and I can't help but think that if I'm hiding something, then I'm ashamed of it. I think if you are hiding anything, no matter how good your reason is, then you're ashamed of it. And I was so tired of seeing countless adolescents taking their lives because they couldn't understand that it gets better. And part of the reason they didn't understand that is because they have got no role models. They've got no people really confirming that it does get better and that it's okay to be how you are. You're born that way. We might as well start criminalizing people who are left-handed.
So I think above anything else, this interview is a really good example of what happens when we romanticize and politicize an individual's coming out process. I'm part of the community, I am queer, and I see a lot of times with other queer people that I know that there's this kind of feeling that if you're not out publicly and that you don't go through certain trials and tribulations as being queer, as that result from being queer, that you're not really queer and that you're not really supporting the community. And that's pretty much the vibe I kind of got from Amber Heard's Amber Heard's words in this video, is that basically if you're hiding something, if you're not out and proud, that you're ashamed. And I think this kind of idea, this romanticized idea of coming out is really detrimental to queer children and queer teens, because not everyone's situation is the same. And I think that we kind of forget that a lot of times when we are so focused on having as many queer role models out and proud in the public as possible. And I'm not saying that having queer role models is a bad thing or harmful, but that in our effort to have as many out there as possible, that we might run the risk of pushing people out there or even convincing people to put themselves out there before they have a chance to really understand themselves and the environment that they're in. When we kind of have this holy image of coming out and suddenly everything will be okay, or if you go through problems everything will get better, I think that is actually pretty harmful to people who are not in an environment that is safe and comfortable for them to do that. And when you shame people who are in these environments for not coming out by saying that they're ashamed of who they are, that they're hiding something, that's pretty rude, first of all, and that's pretty callous when you think about how people's situations are extremely different, and that not everyone is in Amber Heard's position. I mean, look at her. She's an actress. She's out in Hollywood, a place that hasn't always been queer friendly, but is slowly getting there. And she is afforded a lot of different privileges. Class privilege would be one of the things that allow her to be openly queer in a way that won't have people question her or cause harm against her. And I'm not saying that Amber Heard isn't couldn't come across danger in being queer and being privileged, but just that it makes her not her entire life kind of, but just her entire journey as a queer person a lot easier than someone like, say, me, who is not famous in any sort of way and isn't really in a place where she can be comfortable and queer. And I'm thinking mostly of a queer child or a queer teen who hear Amber Heard's words and feel less of a queer person, or even ashamed or upset because they're not able to be out and proud like Amber Heard is. And I feel even in the idea of having queer role models and having people out there who are queer and who are proud, I feel like in the long run that does a lot of good, but that really doesn't change a lot of situations for people. And I feel that for me, like, even seeing Amber Heard be out and proud doesn't change the fact that I am in a space that doesn't allow me to be. And it's very encouraging to see someone like that, and I would like to think that I'd be in that place one day, but I'm really not. And that's okay. And that's okay for other queer people who are out there like me who are not in that place to be out. Um, if we're going to be helpful to anybody, all queer teens and all queer adolescents, we need to realize that everyone's situation is different. And above all, that safety is the number one concern for any person who is not out. No queer person owes you their coming out. No queer person owes you their safety. And if your first thought as a person who is out and as a person who is privileged is to go on in any place, on any interview, on air, and to say that if you're hiding something, you're ashamed, then you need to reconsider your place in this community and how your privileges kind of color the way you look at things and the way you see the world now that you're out. And so what I'm trying to get at here basically is that seeing Amanda Heard say that and not truly understand the kind of effects that she was having on the people who may be watching that interview is really, disconcerting for me. And I'm really tired of this stigma that kind of surrounds coming out, that is actually prevalent in the queer community, and not so much in the straight community, in the straight culture, just in the queer culture, where you have this idea that if you're not out, you're not truly, for the queer community, you're not truly queer. And I think we should stop trying to make an activist rallying cry out of every single coming out. Not every queer person wants to be an activist. Not every queer person wants to talk about their experiences. Some people just want to be queer and they want to be safe. And that is just as valid as being the most out and loud and proud person on the planet. And we should definitely not be shaming them or telling them how they feel about coming out or not coming out. We should be encouraging them to protect their safety above all things, and that we should be encouraging them to feel pride in themselves regardless of their status. And in some cases, some people don't ever want to come out. Some people really just want to have their life in the way that they want it, and that is perfectly fine. And until people like Amber Heard realize that speaking from the top definitely has a huge trickle-down effect on people who are on the bottom, so, quote unquote, until people like Amber Heard realize that you really don't get to define people's coming out in any way, shape, or form. We're going to be we're going to continue to have this conversation for one, and I'm probably going to keep having to make videos like these for two, and that's something I definitely have no interest in doing. So to Amber Heard and to anyone out there who thinks or feels like Amber Heard, I can only ask you that you kind of reassess your privilege, and no matter where you are, just above all things, you need to realize that you're an out person and that not everyone is where you are, and that is perfectly fine for whatever reason. You know, people are not ashamed, and they're not afraid so much as they are concerned for their safety, and that is a valid concern, and that will always be a valid concern. And the quicker you realize that, the happier and safer we'll all be.